Anyways, we got a lot of weird things going on in Week 5, but before we can get into that, we obviously have to rank every team before this. Again, get through all that stuff in Week 4. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some shakeups in these rankings. Let's get this thing going. And with that, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the NFL. Please like and subscribe if you guys enjoy the NFL Week 5 Power Rankings. We will be going through every single spot in the Power Rankings, again, if you have not watched previous ones. And again, I'll give you my number 1 team, and then again, through number 32. We'll start at number 32. And again, if you didn't know, this is basically based off of my opinion and again, how each team's season's gone so far. And again, it changes every week because we like doing that. Anyway, though, the worst team in football right now, again, number 32 spot is the Tennessee Titans. It wouldn't have been them if they didn't get shut out, but they did get shut out, and they've really hit rock bottom. This is an offense that really has nothing going for them outside of the fact their offensive line isn't the worst in football. Their quarterback is young and athletic and hopefully promising, and they don't have the worst running game in football. But that really doesn't matter because they don't have any good options at receiver. Chigga hasn't been terrible for them so far this season, but again, he didn't do absolutely nothing against the Texans last week. I understand it's an elite defense. You should be expecting that, but that defense still really didn't make enough plays to even keep them in that ball game. It was about as bad as it could get. They have really not played or been competitive in a game since week 1, and even in week 1, that offense couldn't get anything going. And until this offense is even somewhat presentable, they will continue to struggle to win games or even be in the games. Which again, when we look at all the teams right now, I think they're the team that is struggling to be competitive the most. That's why they're in the last spot. They're also 0-4, and they haven't won since November 24th, which is last year, not this year. It hasn't happened yet. With that said, though, number 31, we got the Saints. They're also 0-4, but they've been competitive-ish. Again, they got blown up by the Seattle last week, but then they went into the Bills, who in Buffalo, who can we look at as again one of the best teams in the NFL. And they, again, still lost, but again, they stayed somewhat close in that one. They had some opportunities to win that one. If it wasn't for a Cole Bishop and Sand interception, maybe a couple other plays, they could have, I wouldn't say won the game, but definitely been a lot closer. Again, I think that final score doesn't really do it justice either. They played a really solid game overall, in my opinion. Again, big bounce back as well. But still, they got the Giants this week. That's a game they can definitely absolutely win. I'd like to see them actually win a game. Again, considering that Spencer Rattler's 0-10. They're, again, probably the least talented team in football, as I've talked about a lot. But they still have played better than what you'd expect. And then the last 0-4 team, the Jets, are going to go here at 30. They're not really too bad, just because, again, they have a pretty decent identity with their running game being, again, the forefront there. But when that isn't really always great and they've fumbled the ball 3 times, it's really hard to win a game. And even though their defense isn't elite either, they've lost pieces over the past couple of years, again, from what was a pretty decent group back in, 2022. Again, the quarterback situation isn't ideal. Again, Justin Fields is not really that great of a passer. That's why they're 0-4 as well. They've lost a couple close games as well. That's part of the reason. They should be 0-4, but they are because, again, they've lost those close games. Again, I think they'll have a shot to beat the Cowboys this week. That's going to be a fun upset pick. But at the end of the day, guys, they're 0-4, and until they do win a game, it's really hard to see them, again, being a very solid team. But at the same time, they're definitely the least bad of these 3. Now, moving to the teams that aren't also very good. I'm going to start with the Browns at 29. They just weren't very competitive last week. I still think their defense is very good. With how bad this offense is, which I think is one of the, if not the worst, it's not the worst, but one of probably the worst, 3 worst in the NFL. It's hard to see this offense really being, or this team really being successful, because even if this defense gives up 150 yards in a game, if their offense turns over the ball twice, Joe Flacco makes a really bad play, or, again, the offense just, again, doesn't do anything, it's kind of hard for them to, again, see them winning those games. But, again, you saw they beat the Packers last week, so they're capable of winning games for sure, but, I just don't know, again, if their offense, it doesn't, it has a bad game, not even a bad game. They play worse than they usually do. It's just kind of hard to see them winning those games, which is why they're here. Again, if they had Dylan Gabriel, which we'll get into in a minute in a second, I think that would probably give them a little bit more of an outlook there. But, again, the fact that this offense has been that bad so far, it's kind of hard to put them any higher. 28 giving the Giants. I understand they did lose Malik Neighbors, which is a big loss, but their defense finally showed us what they can be capable of. Again, I don't think they're any sort of groundbreaking defense, but they can give you very, very solid play. This is probably the best Giants defense they've had in a pretty long time now in terms of the talent. The secondary really seems to be coming along, but again, Jackson Dart just being in the quarterback, staying in the pocket and getting the ball out quick is going to be his game, to be honest with you, again, for them to be successful. Running game still is a little bit inconsistent. Again, you didn't see a very efficient game from Cam Scatterbo, but if they do get him the football, I think that can kind of, again, marry, again, especially with how they're going to try to use a lot more RPOs. That's going to be a very good way to marry those things together, as well as play complementary football. Again, if this defense is able to continue and build off of how they played last week. Again, very solid win from the Giants, but again, losing Malik Neighbors is a big issue. And again, the fact they don't really have anyone else at receiver that I look like, I'm like, oh, look at that guy. It's going to be definitely a big issue. 27, I think I put the Dolphins. Yeah, the Dolphins. I want to put them higher than this. I think no, they're better than this. I got the Panthers at 27. The Panthers are not a good football team. They really didn't play well at all last week. You could argue that the Giants are above them, but they're not. 'Cause again, they're still somewhat healthy. The Panthers' offense is kind of pathetic. Their running game is pretty solid, but it doesn't matter when their offensive line isn't again consistently winning man to man, because that's where they're gonna have a decent running game. Bryce Young though has been very underwhelming to very disappointing this season. The receiving room is absolute trash. Their tight ends are just not very good, as they haven't really been since Greg Olsen was around. So the Panthers really just didn't address that this offseason. That's just been a huge issue for them. Defensively, they didn't show up in the second half last week. And again, their secondary has been a little bit way too shaky, to be honest with you guys, even though they played really well against the Falcons 2 weeks ago. This Panthers team, I just don't get. I think their defense is a little bit on the talent, on the lower in terms of the talent level, despite them having some pretty good players. And then offensively, like, no one really scares me at all in that group. And again, until anything like that changes, I don't know how you can put them any higher than this. Now 26, I got the Dolphins. They lost Tyreek Hill, which is a massive loss for that offense. They don't have an engine. I mean, they do have again. Devon Nation's that engine, but still, Tyreek Hill, I think again, even with him last year not having the greatest season, he still put that offense in a decent spot. With him gone, it's going to be a big issue. Defensively, though, they played better, but they still haven't been very good this season. Again, I'd like to see how they play against the Panthers, and that's a pretty decent matchup for them in terms of how they can display themselves. But until Tua, I think, plays at a really high level, I don't see how this team's going to really be any sort of threat this season. 25, we get the Bengals, who have been the worst team in football the past 2 weeks. They put up an absolutely pathetic performance on offense last week, putting up 160 yards. They got outgained by like 350 yards, as I talked about in the Monday Night Football recap. Go watch that if you haven't seen those games yet. On top of that, though, for the Bengals, their defense hasn't really done much to really, encourage their better performance. But unless they, again, wrap their heads up and, again, or the Lions' heads up and, make them play in blind, I don't really see how they're going to be very competitive in that game, again, on Sunday. 24, I have the Raiders. They have just been a frustrating team so far this year. They're not exactly bad. Ashton Jeanty had a hell of a game. But it really doesn't matter when this offense, again, is turning over the ball at the rate they were able to, again, which is kind of impressive. And the defense doesn't really have anyone who's consistently playing at a level to where they can, maximize their best players and guys like Max Crosby. So, again, the fact that that's the issue with them is just going to kind of hold them back for sure, despite them not really being, again, one of the lower teams in terms of talent. 23, I got the Patriots. Cool, they blew out the doors off the Panthers. They had their best win in years. I still don't think they're that great. This offense just doesn't really scream to me that they're going to, again, continue at this level, but I still don't think, obviously, they're at least a decent team. I would really like to see Stephon Diggs, again, continue to have build off this game, and their defense, obviously, is pretty decent, so, again, there's really nothing else to talk about with them. They're a decent team, but, again, until they beat someone good, I don't really know where else I'm going to put them. 22, I do have the Falcons. They had a good win, but at the same time, again, is this offense it's got to be somewhere in the middle of what they did this week, even though, again, last week, even though the Commanders' defense isn't even that good, and then what they did against the Panthers, where they were absolutely awful. So I think the fact that, again, they were able to play the way they were able to last week, I think was very impressive, the way they bounced back as well. But I got to see more consistency before I move them anywhere. Again, they're on their bye week, which they can definitely iron out some of those kinks. But until, again, they again fix those issues, I don't see how they can be much higher here. 21, I got the Bears. I don't think they moved very much. They played hard. They did a decent job against the Raiders. But, again, still, their offense is just a little too inconsistent for me, even though Roman Dunes is really turning out to be a pretty darn good player. Their O-line has been very good the past 2 weeks. They looked very impressive. But, again, how much is that really hold the validity when they play against a better team? They're also on their bye week, so again, we'll see how that offense really comes out of the bye, and then also this defense tells, again, big issues they're going to have to figure out. Number 20, give me the Vikings. The Vikings are interesting because I don't think they're anywhere near this bad in terms of their overall roster. But the fact that, again, J.J. McCarthy still hasn't really been proven to be very good, and Carson Wentz isn't coming off his greatest game overall, hurts this team. They had a very good opportunity to, again, kind of show the Steelers what they were, and they didn't really, again, take that or seize that opportunity very, very well. Their defense, again, is a little bit concerning for me as well. Again, I think they're not a bad group, but again, the fact that they still don't really have a true identity, on top of the fact that they really rely on pressures with those simulated groups and just straight up really heavy blitzes. Is Brian Flores' MO, but at the same time, I think they got to try to build off of that a little bit more. That was part of the reason they got in trouble at some points last year, despite being pretty solid statistically. Still, the Vikings, again, have a pretty solid team, so they're being at 20, but I think, again, it's just I don't think they're going to be the most competitive against certain teams. Number 19, I got the Texans. Their offense still isn't really good at all, but their defense is probably the best in football right now, so that's going to keep them here. I think they have a very good shot to knock off the Ravens this week. Again, if Lamar's injury is very concerning in terms of, again, if he's actually going to be good to go. He's doubtful for this next week. Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks is just not good, especially with that to play in week 6. But the Lamar injury just screams to me that this Texans defense is going to feast on Derrick Henry. Again, we'll see how that actually happens because they've had their issues against him in the past. But again, if that offense can be anything remotely decent, again, especially against that Ravens defense that has had a lot of woes, I think I think that'll definitely put them in a spot where they can again get back to a decent spot. Again, they got a 0-3 hole. They got to build themselves out of that, and I think they have a very good opportunity to do so. 18, I got the Cardinals. I don't think they moved very much either. They were pretty competitive last week against the Seahawks. They really weren't that too underwhelming. Their defense, I think, is still a decent group. They're not great, though, which, again, is the biggest issue, again, in terms of their ceiling there. Offensively, again, it comes down to if Marvin Harrison Jr. Their dude can establish, a solid connection there. But, again, like, Kyler can't see over the offensive line. So, again, I don't really see that happening. But, again, they're not a bad team. That's why they're at 18. They haven't played really that terrible just yet. 17, I got the Cowboys. I still don't think they're that great. Their offense had a very, very fun performance against the Packers, which is really encouraging because I think they're a good group. But when they've been away from Dallas, they have not really been that effective. And then again, their defense is also a big question mark. Again, I think they were a little bit better last week. Again, they should have beat the Packers. They outplayed them, but there's just still a lot of issues that I still don't think have really been fully, again, revealed yet, which I think they definitely could be this week. So, again, solid performance by the Cowboys, but they're still haven't gotten too much better just yet. 16, we have the Jags. They have been solid this season. They have found a way to win a couple close games, but they also should be 4-0 considering how they blew that game against the Bengals. Their defense, I think, is very talented, and they've really had a fun start to the season in a lot of ways, but last week they still, again, kind of control the game, but again, Tell Trevor, I think, really has a big-time performance. I can't really buy into this team too much. 15, I got the Steelers. Steelers have been solid this season. I think they're a very similar spot to last week. They were able to hold on and sustain that game against the Vikings. Their defense played very well. And again, with this defense playing the way they should be playing, again, takes a lot of stress off this offense that I think can move the ball. Maybe not the greatest, but in a way where they don't have to worry too much about, again, and really having to be the main catalyst, which, again, I think is a huge part. How the Steelers team will be successful this year. Again, especially with them going to their bye week at 3-1, they should be pretty happy there. 14, I got the Niners. They're just not a very fun team, in my opinion. They're really that impressive. They're still solid. They're not going to make too many mistakes. They have some talented players in that offense, obviously. But until this offensive line really continually creates big holes for Christian McCaffrey, I don't see this offense really has too much of a high ceiling, especially with the turnovers Brock Purdy has and the fact that he is doubtful. Or not doubtful. He's questionable. He might even be doubtful for the Thursday night game. Get ready for the preview and the game day picks coming up tomorrow as well on that. But, again, that's college football game day picks for week 5. On to week 6 now for college football. That's crazy. But back to the Niners. Their defense is pretty good. But, again, they don't have Nick Bosa. So, how much is that really going to matter? You literally lost your, again, the best player on the entire team. You only can do so much. Trent Williams, I see you, though. 13. I got the Ravens. I want to put them lower, but, it was one game. They got blown out. I understand that. But, again, Lamar got injured. So, again, realistically, how bad are the Ravens with Lamar? They're probably around here. But again, their defense has been absolutely trash this season. Again, unless they, shut down the Texans, which I guess they could do. They should be, again, talent-wise, they should be able to do it. But it just hasn't happened yet. Zach Orr's really had a lot of issues in terms schematically with this group and a lot of the miscommunications that come to the fact that they have a young corner, Nate Wiggins, which is being asked to do way too much, and he's just not playing his game. And Malachi Starks, who is not really in the role that he should be in, with a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who can take on even bigger responsibility than I think Zach Orr wants to admit. It's on top of the fact that this pass rush has been non-existent for most of this season, and their run defense has been absolutely atrocious, and the run fits and gap control have been porous, to say the least. But it really doesn't matter if this offense doesn't, again, perform the way they're supposed to. I got to see Derrick Henry have a big game. I think he can do it against the Texans, honestly. It'll be interesting to see that, though. Again, they're 1-3. They got to win this game. It's basically a must-win. 12, give me the Commanders. They didn't have a very good game. Their offense still was able to put up enough points despite a pretty lackluster game from their, from Marcus Mariota. The running game also was a little bit sketchy for me as well. But again, their defense, again, I don't really think is that special. When Jay Daniels comes back, I think they'll be okay. Number 11, I do, in fact, have the Broncos. Good performance. Still not that great, though. Their offense put up a boatload of yards and only 28 points. I'd like to see them convert that a little bit more. I don't see how, again, they play against the Eagles, and if they're not able to get in the end zone on a couple of those drives, that'll definitely be a big issue. But their defense is very, very good, even against a pretty pathetic Bengals offense. But I'm really thinking that they're able to play well enough against the Eagles, they might hand them their first loss in over a year for Jalen Hurts, that is. And then we move on to number 10. Top 10 here. Seahawks are my first team here. They've been playing really solid ball the past couple weeks. A lot of people have them higher, but again, I don't think they played the greatest teams these past couple weeks. Solid win again on the road against the Cardinals in short week. That's a huge win for them. But again, they beat the Saints in the freaking, who else did they beat in week 2? The Steelers. That was a good win, but still, Seahawks have been solid this season. I just don't think they're really that great. they're not the most talented team. Their defense has been a little bit inconsistent, and then they're offensively, they don't really have the most balanced offense. And until that really changes, I see Sam Darnold have like just an absolute monster game. Again, similar to Trevor Lawrence, I don't see how this team is really going to be much, again, I wouldn't say much higher, but like, again, a real true threat. But again, they've played really good ball the past 3 weeks. Again, they're on a 3-game win streak for a reason. Number 9, I got the Colts. They're legit guys. They put the Rams to the limits this week. The biggest problem I see with them is that I don't think Daniel Jones is really going to make those, or Indiana Jones, my bad, is always going to make those massive plays that'll keep them in games. But again, Donnie Mitchell is really the reason they lost that, to be honest, guys. They played a very good game overall. Their O-line is very good, despite the pressure that the Rams were able to get at a pretty decent clip. Their defense is hard to, again, solve a lot. They're very tricky, which I think is what's going to keep them, again, ahead of the curve, maybe, in terms of the fact that they aren't the most talented team overall. They're going to be at number 9 for me, though. Number 8, I have the Packers. It wasn't a good performance. They were still, hang on. Again, they're still a talented team. I think that, again, Michael Parsons will have a better game next time he plays against the Cowboys. Hopefully that is in not December, in January, in like the wild card round or something. But still, Packers, they didn't have their greatest game. They knew they should have played better, but they got outplayed. So like at some point, it's like, what's going on? A little bit shaky past weeks for the Packers. They get some stuff to work out during the bye week, mainly on that defense after how they played last week. 7, I have the Bucks. No, do I? Yeah, the Bucks is 7. The Bucks aren't a team that I look at and I'm like super concerned about just because of how their injuries have really worked out for them. But again, if this offensive line is somewhat complete, it's not going to be healthy. But if this offensive line is able to get a little more continuity together, this running game is finally able to take off. And then again, a guy like Mike Evans is healthy. I don't see how this offense can't be a little bit more competitive. They were in that first half against the Eagles, but still, again, their defense, despite playing a pretty darn good second half, didn't play well-rounded enough to win that game. I think, again, they definitely have the goods to beat the Eagles, but that just performance wasn't good enough last week, and that's why they're here at 7. 6, I got the Chiefs. They've looked really good the past couple weeks, but at the same time, they're still not that great. Again, solid 2 wins, I guess, is what I want to say. But at the same time, again, unless they go into Duval and blow the doors off the Jags, I don't really see this team as imposing too much. But Mahomes looks a lot more comfortable and a lot more confident in this offense, again, after the past 2 games. 5, I got the Chargers. They didn't actually, I don't think they moved. The real reason I didn't really move them that much was because, honestly, I saw that coming. Like, they didn't play in a way I'm like, oh, they got blown out. That was an embarrassment. It was a trap game, in my opinion. They kind of fell into it. Herbert turnovers are a little bit an issue. The fact they can't run the ball is also a big issue for me. But really, this defense didn't play that bad. They limited them, 200 yards of offense for the Giants. So, again, if you're a Chargers fan, again, I wouldn't be too mad about this loss. Again, it sucks that, again, you went into MetLife and you were playing an 0-3 team. You couldn't nail them down. You were 3-0. That ended up happening. Again, I saw it as a trap game. That's exactly what it was. And again, hats off to the Giants for that performance. But again, Chargers fans, I wouldn't be too concerned just yet. 4, or really at all. I got the Eagles. They can't throw the football. What am I supposed to tell you guys? They're not this good. Their defense, I think, is talented, but like, how much is that really going to matter again if they're going to play like this every single week? And that was a very scary performance. But again, they still won, so how much am I really going to talk? And if you go, oh, until they lose, they're going to be lower. I definitely reason with that. But at the same time, this is the Eagles team again. It's just flat out ridiculous right now. Lions are at 3. They've been probably the best team and most impressive team in football the past 2 weeks. They have been very, very, very good. Their offense has been solid. Their defense has been good. They've been playing really well. 2, I got the Rams. They don't change. They kind of just definitely got lucky against Colts. There's no way around that. They probably should have lost that game, but they found a way to win it against some more Eagles. That's what you needed to do, and they're just a better team than the Eagles too. So that's kind of what I got in the order there. And also Stafford's coming off of a monster game, huge bounce back. And then at number 1, I obviously have the Bills because they're undefeated. They have the best quarterback in football, other than obviously Mahomes right now. And again, until they lose, bro, like I said, they're probably not going to leave this spot. Again, didn't play great against the Saints, didn't play great against the Dolphins the week before, but both big wins. They got the Patriots in their 3rd straight home game to end the homestand this week on Sunday Night Football. Should be an interesting matchup. That is all I got for you guys here in the, again, NFL Week 5 Power Rankings. Any issues you have with this, comment that down in the section below. Any opinions you have, who do you think is the best team in football? And also we'll see you for the Thursday Night Football preview tomorrow, which should be a pretty darn good game.
Families impacted by congenital heart disease. We got Cam Newton. May go. He's ahead of the field, and they run him down inside the 20-yard line. Poor Dre Tankersley saved the touchdown.
Unbelievable. Side of your screen. Alonso fails to fall back, and Carolina, with a simple zone read, is pounding the Dolphins.